Search and rescue teams from the Lebanese army are scanning the Mediterranean Sea for any trace of the 90 passengers and crew aboard Ethiopian Airlines Flight 409. Witnesses say they saw the Boeing 737 fall into the sea in flames around 2:30 a.m. local time, shortly after takeoff. Lebanon's President Michel Suleiman said the weather was incredibly stormy. There were reports of thunder and lightning at takeoff. Emergency crews on shore have recovered seats from the plane and other debris, but no trace of survivors. This is the third deadly accident for Ethiopian Airlines in the last 20 years. The airline has a reputation for safety compared to other African carriers. The airline said the plane was last inspected on December 25th.
It had no technical problems at all. It departed yesterday from here with no remark at all.
That is little consolation for relatives who lost loved ones. They gathered at the airport in Beirut awaiting word. One family that should have been there was not. Faoud Shihab's daughter asked him to extend his visit. That request apparently saved his life. But for the families of the 90 people that were on board, hope for a miracle is fading fast.
CIT is the aircraft leasing company which actually Ethiopian Airlines was using. CIT is a New York-based firm, so certainly a mechanical question will be raised. We tried to reach CIT, and no one was in the office when we tried. One thing that we do know, Greg, is that if there's anything good to come out of this, this crash happened over water. We know from our experience in Beirut that airport is right up against pretty densely populated areas outside of the downtown area of Beirut. But again, the search goes on for any survivors. Right now, the fear is all 90 will be dead in this incident, Greg.
Separated by hundreds of miles, yet united in their grief. Relatives in Lebanon, inconsolable with the news their loved ones are probably dead. And in Ethiopia, where flight ET-409 was due to arrive, the heartbreak is the same.
Ethiopian families mourn the death of loved ones who were among 90 people aboard an Ethiopian Airlines plane. It is believed that no one survived the horrific crash after the plane plunged into the Mediterranean shortly after takeoff in Beirut. A DJ at a local radio station lost his wife in the crash and is now left with their children. He was comforted by friends and relatives as he anxiously waited for information.
There is nothing. We have not heard anything, whether they have found her body or not. No one is giving us information. Even the airline isn't saying anything. So now we are just sitting and waiting.
A team of investigators from Ethiopia, including Ethiopian airline officials, are in Beirut. Boeing said it was coordinating with the U.S. National Transport Safety Board to assist Lebanese authorities in the inquiry. Lebanese and international search teams scoured the Mediterranean coast for the victims and missing flight recorders, but hopes of finding any survivors have faded. Flight ET-409 was carrying mostly Lebanese and Ethiopian passengers. It was headed to the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa before it apparently broke up in the air and crashed into the sea during a thunderstorm before dawn on Monday.
Looking down on the crash site, this debris is all that is left of the Ethiopian Airlines jet. Eyewitnesses say it exploded in flames before ditching into the sea. There were 90 people on board. Officials say there's little chance of finding any survivors. The Boeing 737 was destined for the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. It took off from Beirut International Airport just after 2:30 local time in the morning. But it disappeared from radar screens just 5 minutes later, apparently in the middle of a thunderstorm.
The lightning network that we are referring to is one that we operate from the University of Washington, and it involves sensors that are located all around the world. And in fact, there are several in Europe and in Africa and so forth. The lightning location network indicated that there was considerable activity, considerable lightning strokes that were located in the area, principally over the water, but certainly within the area, certainly within 30 to 50 kilometers of the airport. The other comment you asked was about this airplane, the 737-800. I had a student who is now the head of the Boeing Lightning Lab, in which they test fuel tanks and so forth. So I can say that it's my understanding that these aircraft are carefully tested for all the possibilities that they can imagine as to protection from lightning strikes to the aircraft. Aircraft get struck by lightning all the time, my understanding. I mean, it's very common. And so I do not think that under normal circumstances that flying a 737 through a region where there's some lightning is necessarily likely to be automatically considered to be a dangerous thing to do.
Even if it were a strong lightning?
Well, okay, so then the next comment is, let's clarify the strong lightning part. The stroke that was identified as possibly occurring right at or about the time that the aircraft went down was a little bit stronger than average. That's true. However, in the statistical distribution of lightning intensities, it was not an unusually large stroke. I think it's possible that a lightning stroke could hit an airplane and could cause a fire or cause it to have a catastrophic failure. I think that's possible. I don't think it's likely. I think it's possible. We don't know exactly the circumstance. We do know that lightning can have very large electric currents that flow along the aircraft surfaces, and some of that lightning energy can penetrate into the cavity of the aircraft. From the scientific point of view is that it's possible, it's not very likely, but it's possible.
Officials say the weather, not terrorism, is to blame. The Lebanese capital has been lashed by thunderstorms over the past few days. If this is true, it means the flight could have been delayed, and that will add to the anguish of relatives as they watch the body bags being returned to hospital mortuaries. Ethiopian airline officials insist their plane was fit for use. The 737 had recently been serviced. If the weather is the cause, one very important question will have to be answered. Why was flight ET-409 allowed to take off into such a deadly storm?